he was a nightmare for people that had to try to prepare for him because he had unique skills.
Just go get the quarterback. I felt sorry for some of those poor tackles that came in and had to go against him because they didn't realize what they were getting themselves into.
Hey, baby, let's go out there like a bunch of crazy dogs. Have some fun. John, I got to do that in this.
Lights out.
Sacking the cornerback is just like you devastate a city, or you cream a multitude of people. I mean, it's just like you put all the offensive players in one bag, and I just take a baseball bat and beat on the bag. So each time he came over there, I tried to tear his damn head off.
Let's play some football. Let's play some football.
The pressure is on. This is Off the Edge on Tide 100.9.
Focus on what you want to do, what you want to accomplish. Think about that. Don't think about how you feel, how tired you are, how hot it is. You got to push yourself on the field like when you're playing football.
It's my honor to present the National Championship Trophy to Coach Nick Saban and the Alabama Crimson Tide.
To me, this is the ultimate team. All these guys bought into everything they needed to do to be the best players that they could be. There's more togetherness on this team than almost any team that we've ever had. And they had to overcome and persevere so much adversity through this season, and they've done it magnificently. And I'm so proud of this group for what they've been able to accomplish and going undefeated and winning the national championship.
Streaming live on YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, and the Tide 100.9 app. Here is your host of Off the Edge, Jacob Harrison.
Your man overthrown. Spit out the ball.
Hello there, good morning. Welcome into Off the Edge, Tide 100.9, your home for Alabama Crimson Tide Sports. I am Jacob Harrison. We got Bryant Horn, Palmer Hall sneaking in this morning as well, interning with us. Got plenty to get into this morning. What we're going to focus most on are the three starting quarterbacks in the NFL, or not starting, but three quarterbacks that are from the Alabama Crimson Tide that have potential to be big-time players for their teams this year. Of course, talking about Jalen Hurts, Tua Tagovailoa, and Mac Jones. We'll get into what they've been up to at training camp, some of the adversities that they face, some of the things that are going their way, why they can be successful, what hurdles they'll have to overcome throughout the 2021 season, and why it's so exciting that we've gotten to this point now with Alabama quarterbacks in the NFL. That's the one thing that the Alabama Crimson Tide has kind of struggled with throughout the years, especially under Nick Saban until this point. Just a few years ago, you're looking through the NFL and it's hard to find a quarterback. You can find almost every other position except for quarterback. You had short stints with Greg McElroy and John Parker Wilson. A.J. McCarron's been in the league a long time, but he's never been a starting quarterback. And then you blink, and now there are three guys who are ready to take over for their teams. Mac Jones just, awaiting the opportunity as he's been known to do in the past. Before we dive into it too much, though, the show, as always, streams live on the Tide 100.9 app. Your best friend is a Crimson Tide fan. It's available on Android and Apple devices, and we'll give you all of the content that we have here for you at Tide 109, whether it is written or on the air. The podcast center lives there as well. Everything you need to enjoy your content on all things Alabama Crimson Tide is right there for you. And also, the show, as always, is brought to you by Alabama Vintage, AlabamaVTG.com, at AlabamaVTG on the Instagram account. The Instagram account is the best place to check out Alabama Vintage. It's where you can see all the incoming stock and kind of claim it for your own before it hits the store shelves. But if you step inside at 2210 University Boulevard, you will see a plethora of items for you to take in and boost your fandom, whether it's T-shirts, sweaters, starter jackets, shoes, hats, you name it all. Charlie's got it in stock for you there, as well as the memorabilia that can line your home, your man cave, your she shed, your lady cave, whatever you want to call it, whatever you need, he's got you covered. Professional gear, vintage clothing of all kinds, all available. Alabama Vintage. So what we did last night on Tide109.com is myself, Joe Gaither, our brand manager, and one of our interns, Michael Bronner. We all divvied up the quarterbacks and just kind of dove into what they've been doing since training camp started. And I'll start with Mac Jones because that's who I drew. And I got to say, it's very impressive what Mac Jones has done so far to this point through 5 days of camp and a sixth to take place today. How much team building he has done over this time period with the Patriots. You can kind of look back a little bit to last year. Not all the Miami Dolphins teammates were sold on Tua Tagovailoa. They were a little hesitant, saying things like he's got a lot of room to grow and those sorts of things. And all that's always true when it comes to rookie quarterbacks. And you're always skeptical when you've got a quarterback situation and you don't know who to trust. And when you don't know who's going to be the starting quarterback, as the Dolphins did last year, it can make it very difficult on the team surrounding said quarterback because everybody's going to have the guy who they think should be the quarterback. You look back to the time here at Alabama when it was between Tua Tagovailoa and Jalen Hurts. There's plenty of people that still to this day believe Jalen Hurts should have won that starting quarterback job and point to the injuries and the loss in the national championship to Clemson as reasons for Jalen Hurts having been the guy that should have won the job, as well as his performance against Georgia in the SEC championship that year when Tua Tagovailoa, of course, went down with yet another injury. So, but with Mac Jones, it's on a completely different level because, he's the guy that reminds you of Tom Brady, not in his skill set, not in his personality, but in what he does as a quarterback. Good pocket manager, a guy that understands the offense to an incredible degree and is smart with the football. Not an impressive arm by any means, but he's accurate and he's a good leader. And those are the kind of things that you need to be a successful quarterback in the NFL, regardless of your skill set. Of course, everybody wants to go through and they want to look at NFL quarterbacks these days, and they look at Patrick Mahomes and they look at Lamar Jackson, they look at Josh Allen, and they see those three kind of guys with incredible arms, powerful arms, great velocity, deep arm strength, good accuracy. When you're talking about Patrick Mahomes, you're talking about one of the most accurate quarterbacks in the NFL, though, and the ability to escape the pocket and make something happen on the move. When the play breaks down, what can they do on their own to create plays rather than just giving up on them? Because if you watch Tom Brady, who turns 44 today, by the way, when you watch him, if a play breaks down, he's got to go down or he's got to throw the ball in the dirt. He's got no other options. He can't escape. It's not plausible for him, no matter how good his offensive line is. If the pressure is there, that's how you beat Tom Brady. We've seen it several times with the New York Giants in the Super Bowls. You put pressure on these kind of quarterbacks, and it's the end of the world. However, the guys that can scramble, guys like Tua and Jalen, for example, then you've got opportunities to make something happen off script. And those are the kind of things that we didn't see from Mac Jones. Jones, of course, said throughout the draft process, it's just something I wasn't in a position to have to do. And because of all the skill players around him being so excellent, he's able to just manage the offense and get the ball to the playmakers, which is what the quarterback position has always been all about. You just need a guy that's smart and capable and is wise with what he does with the football in order to do those sorts of things. It's a lot tougher than it seems, especially when you have to make the plays that are downfield or in tight corners, tight windows, those sorts of things. Mac Jones has proven that he can do all that, but his ability so far to show that he can become a good leader for this football team. And for guys like Donta Hightower, guys like Raekwon McMillan, guys like Jalen Mills, some of the top players on the defense for the New England Patriots, saying that the way that he goes out there and gets things done, he's willing to talk to his receivers, he's willing to go over the mistakes that happen. Those are the kind of things that set Mac Jones apart. Despite the question marks that may surround his athletic ability, which you have to be a fine athlete to be a quarterback in the NFL anyway, regardless of what your skill set is, how often you run and those sorts of things. But his teammates appear to love him. And that's a mark that you really rarely hear about when it comes to rookie quarterbacks. I think so often there's that that awkward situation where the incumbent starter is the guy that nobody's really ready to get away from, and he feels a sense of awkwardness. Look at Aaron Rodgers and Jordan Love. There's that sense of awkwardness between the two. Sure, they can go in the media and they can talk about how, the problems aren't between themselves. It's more of the situation in and of itself. But then you can go back to Aaron Rodgers and Brett Favre, who really kind of didn't like each other because they were on each other's toes. Aaron Rodgers was ready to be the guy and Brett Favre wasn't ready to give it up. Those sorts of things happen a lot when it comes down to these rookie quarterbacks. If it's not a situation like Zach Wilson, where he's on a team where nobody's a proven starting quarterback, or you go to Jacksonville with Trevor Lawrence and it's a given. He's the first overall pick. He's the guy. But you can go up to Chicago. I guarantee you there's that air of awkwardness between Andy Dalton and Justin Fields. There's that air of awkwardness between Jimmy Garoppolo and Trey Lance in San Francisco. That doesn't appear to be the case with the Patriots and Mac Jones and Cam Newton, and I think that is something that's really kind of admirable. But then you get on the field, and the past 2 days have been up and down for Mac Jones. He's learning, right? He's still – this isn't Alabama where, every offseason and every chance you get, you're on the field and you've grown a camaraderie with these guys before you get on the field as a starting quarterback. That's not the case here. He's brand new to these guys. Throughout the summer, he's worked with a few of them. During the spring, right after he was drafted, that really wasn't the case at all. But now he's getting into the season, into the preseason with training camp. He's still trying to get that connection, trying to get that camaraderie. And he talked about it. You can read all about, some of the quotes that are from Mac Jones and his teammates at Tide109.com. But, day 4 training camp, he really kind of struggles a little bit, has a tough time, is very inconsistent, has some overthrows, has some balls batted at the line of scrimmage, has to eat a few, quote unquote sacks. And it's a struggle, right? It's kind of a pain, right? The next day he comes out, he gets the majority of the snaps from Cam Newton, and he's ready to go. He's ready to go, and he lights everybody up. He looks accurate. He looks smart in the pocket as he always has. And those are the kind of things that can aid him out. Now, listen, Bill Belichick said it himself. This isn't necessarily a competition in which we're trying to figure out who the starting quarterback is for week 1. We're trying to see who's the best guy for the team when it comes down to it. Think about last year with Miami and Ryan Fitzpatrick. You come in, you've got with Tua, you've got no offseason, none. And you're coming off a bad hip injury. The Dolphins already have Ryan Fitzpatrick. He's the starter. But once it came down to the fact that the Dolphins felt like they were in playoff position, that's when they threw Tua Tagovailoa out there. That's when they said, all right, Tua, you're the starting quarterback now. The job is yours. Maybe that's a similar situation for Mac Jones this year. If the Patriots feel like they're in a situation to get back into the playoffs after this past year, missing it for the first time in a very, very long time, maybe that's when they throw Mac Jones in there. Or maybe it's after Cam Newton potentially starts to fall off again. Last year, he was very inconsistent himself. The team went 7-8. He threw a lot of interceptions. He wasn't very accurate. He battled COVID at one point and wasn't able to come back and really perform on the back end of that. There's a reason they selected Mac Jones with the 15th overall pick. And it's because of his potential to be a great quarterback like that, like the man that came before him wearing number 12 for the Patriots. That's what Mac Jones brings to the table. Whether or not he's a starter 5 weeks into the season, 10 weeks into the season, 15 weeks into the season, I think is the biggest question around Mac Jones rather than will he be the starter in week 1. He won't be unless Cam Newton gets hurt or something drastic happens. Cam Newton's the starter week 1 against the Miami Dolphins. But who will start against Tua and the Dolphins in the final week of the season as there's that push for the playoffs? For my money, I think it'll be Mac Jones. I don't have a lot of faith in Cam Newton. I think Cam is a great quarterback. I think he gets a lot of trash thrown his way unjustifiably. But last year he didn't play well. So there's a reason you go out and you get a new quarterback to compete with him. And Cam's talked about it. It's all about competition. The entire quarterback room, whether there's a defined starter or not, is all competing with each other to try to make each other better. And that's a smart way to approach the situation. From Cam Newton, it's very mature to go after it that way. For Mac Jones, it helps, it helps build that fire for him. And for guys that aren't in the picture to be the starter, like Brian Hoyer, like Jarrett Stidham, it allows them to get better as well if the opportunity comes for them to be on the field. You look at the same thing at Alabama, how Jalen Hurts and Tua Tagovailoa and Mac Jones all competed for all those years when they were on the same roster. The same applies to the NFL. The competition, it breeds camaraderie. It brings something to the team that is necessary for success. We'll take a break. When we come back, we'll continue the conversation. We'll talk about Jalen Hurts, what he's had going on with the Philadelphia Eagles, and he's without one of his star wide receivers. We'll break it all down here next. Off the Edge, Tide 100.9, your home for Alabama Crimson Tide Sports.
The Alabama football countdown clock is driven by Crawford Insurance, Tuscaloosa's low-cost auto insurer. Call 752-6489 for a free quote today.
Roll Tide! Roll Tide!
There are 32 days until Alabama football.
Dominate! In misery, I don't feel either of these. I'm in a good mood.
Okay.
Hey, man, what's wrong?
Well, it just didn't sound very bluesy.
He's probably happy because he found out Honey Nut Cheerios can help lower cholesterol as part of a heart-healthy diet.
Oh, hey, Buzz.
Okay, well, let's try it again.
Smile on my face.
Nope, that's still happy.
Have a change of heart with Honey Nut Cheerios. Learn more about Honey Nut Cheerios by picking up a box at your local store.
Save now on Pro Essentials with Lowe's Pro Summer Savings. Save on select appliance special values. Plus, save an additional $50 when you buy 2 or more appliances, each priced $396 or more. You'll also find savings on tools and more throughout the store. At Lowe's, the new home for pros. Must ask cashier to apply discount in store. Online must use promo code. Can't be combined with any other discounts. See Lowe's.com for exclusions and terms. Valid 7/15 through 8/4. U.S. only.
Gonna miss you around here, Iris.
Olivia's best optometry technician is going back to school.
Did we get that new frame?
Her eye is already twitching about finding a replacement.
Ugh, this can't keep happening. We're gonna have to cancel appointments.
Indeed can help her hire great people fast.
I need Indeed.
Indeed you do. Screen for quality candidates with the skills your role needs with Indeed assessments. Visit Indeed.com/credit and get $75 towards your first sponsored job. Terms and conditions apply.
Tide 100.9 Tuscaloosa weather.
The sky partly to mostly sunny today with only a small chance of a shower through the evening hours. The high today 88, the low tonight 69. Tomorrow partially sunny, a chance of widely scattered showers or thunderstorms. The high also at 88. I'm James Spann on the ABC 3340 Weather Center on Tide 100.9. It's 83 degrees in Tuscaloosa.
We aren't going anywhere. Off the Edge is available in the podcast center on Tide100.9.com.
We are back here on Off the Edge, Tide 100.9, your home for Alabama Crimson Tide Sports. I am Jacob Harrison. We're discussing the Alabama Crimson Tide quarterbacks that are in the NFL, how their training camps have been going. We're just 2 days away from preseason football starting in the NFL, and I can't wait to see my Pittsburgh Steelers take on the Dallas Cowboys. They're in Canton, Ohio. 4 Pittsburgh Steelers going into the Hall of Fame. It's a good day. It's a good day. And then the very next day, the Alabama Crimson Tide will kick off their fall training camp as well. We'll get our first sneak peeks at what this team is going to bring to the table this year. We do know that by the time they play LSU, the quarterback situation there for the Bayou Bengals is not quite as solidified as they had hoped. Miles Brennan suffering a severe left arm injury. You can read about it at Tide109.com. It would appear Max Johnson is basically going to have that quarterback job handed to him now in fall camp for the Tigers. However, he's going to have to continue the success that he experienced last year while he was splitting time with TJ Finley, who's now at Auburn, to continue to be the starting quarterback. And by the way, when it comes down to these NFL training camps, I just read it on Twitter a little bit ago, and it's a great point. The biggest thing that you can win in training camp isn't just the experience that you garner, isn't just finding diamonds in the rough and those sorts of things. It's health. It's staying healthy. We've learned this morning that Julio Jones is potentially facing an injury. Learned 2 days ago that Devontae Smith sprained his MCL. You look at the Colts and they're just falling apart. If you remember the foot injury that Carson Wentz suffered, it turns out that their starting guard, Quentin Nelson, who's an all-time or a 3-time All-Pro and is considered one of the best guards in football, he has the exact same foot injury, the exact same one. So he's going to miss 5 to 12 weeks. It's bizarre. It really is. It's the most frustrating thing in sports. But coming out of training camp healthy is the biggest thing for anybody. Now, that being said, that's a very crucial part of what's happening in Philadelphia for the Eagles. When you bring in new wide receivers, why do we see rookie wide receivers struggle so often? Why were Jerry Jeudy and Henry Ruggs not quite as effective last year as we had hoped? Well, a lot of it comes down to the fact that they did not have training camps, that they didn't have traditional training camps. They didn't have traditional summer workouts, traditional rookie mini camps, those sorts of things, right? And then it comes down to camaraderie with your quarterbacks. Well, is your quarterback any good to begin with? That was Jerry Jeudy's problem. Drew Lock isn't a good quarterback. And for Henry Ruggs, his problem is the fact that Derek Carr can't push the ball down the field without him having to slow down. Those sorts of things matter. Those sorts of things play a big, big part. But the other part of it is being able to stay healthy through all of those. For Ruggs and for Jeudy, that wasn't an option. You couldn't get hurt when you're not out at training camp. But for Devontae Smith to get hurt, it's a blow. But the smart thing is, and again, Tide109.com, you can get a little bit more info on it from Michael Bronner talking about Jalen Hurts and what he's showcasing at training camp. That's the big deal for Jalen Hurts, is that after practices, he's spending time with his wide receivers and his tight ends, his weapons. He's making sure that there's absolutely zero room for concern that this team will be prepared mentally as well as physically. Now, there's no substitute for being able to throw routes with Devontae Smith. There's no substitute. But at least being on the same page as to what assignments are, what the route combinations are, what the timing should look like verbally with Devontae Smith, with Jalen Reagor, with all the weapons, Zach Ertz, all the weapons there in Philadelphia for Jalen Hurts. That's what you'd like to see. That's what you'd like to see. Now, Jalen Hurts last year, I was actually very impressed when he finally took over the starting gig for the Eagles. I think he's got a lot of potential to be something special in the NFL. But at the same time, there are those quirks about him in his play style that make it very difficult. The fact that he doesn't read his progressions as quickly as you would like, and the fact that he is not as accurate as you need to be. He's worked on all of those things. There's no denying that. Since his job was taken from him, he looked and he analyzed the situation. Why did I have my job taken away from me? It's because I'm not a good passer. I'm a quarterback who's not a good passer. And that's how you lose jobs no matter what level you're at. If you can't throw the ball better than somebody else on your squad, you will lose your job. And that's what happened to Jalen Hurts. And that's why Jalen Hurts fell to the second round, because by the time he was draft eligible, it wasn't completely fixed because it had been so late in the process to fix his issues, right? But he took it seriously and he became a better passer. And he displayed that last year, I think. 5 touchdowns, 3 interceptions, a whole slew of yards, but he's still effective as a rusher as well. You got to kind of take the approach that Lamar Jackson did. And I know they're not very similar players, but take that similar approach. Lamar Jackson is a great passer. A lot of people don't believe that, but he really is. He's handcuffed by the kinds of weapons that he has, as well as the scheme there in Baltimore. But nonetheless, he is an incredible passing quarterback. But he didn't start out that way. At Louisville, that was not the case. A lot of the times when he had success throwing the football, it's because the defense wasn't very good and because he was able to open up so much with his running ability. Jalen Hurts can do kind of the same thing. You're not going to face bad defenses that are just going to give everything up to you. But when you see somebody that's open, you got to be able to get the ball to him and get the ball to him accurately and allow them to make a play. It can't always be just the design of the play. And it can't be a situation where if the line breaks down in front of you, it's escape and it's survive. That's not always the case. You've got to be able to make plays on the move. When the play structure breaks down, you still got to be able to keep your eyes down the field and make a play while you're scrambling rather than immediately bolt for the line of scrimmage and try to pick up as many yards as you can. You're a great athlete, but it doesn't work that way for whatever reason. It just doesn't. But in the same go for Jalen Hurts, I think at the end of the day, all the Eagles need is patience. Now, I'm not crazy about their coaching staff at all, but when you really kind of look at what Jalen Hurts brings to the table and the fact that he's got weapons, they've got a good offensive line. Landon Dickerson's going to be in front of him, by the way, hopefully as one of the guards. If not, it'll be down the road. But I think the Eagles did plenty to help him out on the offensive side of the ball. Miles Sanders comes back. He'll be healthy. That's one more option that I think kind of helps open up that offense. And on the other side of that, the NFC East is wide open. The Washington football team is probably the favorite heading into the season simply because of their defense, some of the pieces that they have on offense, and the fact that Ryan Fitzpatrick is the best quarterback that they've had on the roster since Kirk Cousins, and Cousins wasn't interested in helping the Washington football team at all because they weren't interested in paying him. So there's reason to believe that the Washington football team can stand on top of that division, but the Dallas Cowboys haven't gone anywhere. Dak Prescott is coming back. Dak Prescott is healthy. And, the feeling there in Dallas is that if this offensive line is right and some of the defensive improvements start to stand out and start to make plays on their own and work also in the same vein as a cohesive unit, then that Cowboys team can be very, very good. The Giants are still the Giants, but Saquon Barkley comes back. And that's one more problem that many teams didn't have to deal with last year. The Eagles are still playing catch up in a bad division, and they don't have a great coaching staff by many thoughts from analysts across the nation and from everybody that I've talked to. They're not crazy about what the Eagles have going on there. So it's an uphill battle for Jalen Hurts. And the impression is that if it's not successful this year, then the whole thing's going to get blown up. Now, who knows if that's really the case? And who knows what the mark for success is for Jalen Hurts? Sure, you can get to the playoffs and that can kind of stave everything off. But what if this is a 6-11 team and there's nothing really Jalen Hurts can really do about that because of the talent or the injuries or all these other non-competing factors that can weigh on what Jalen Hurts brings to the table? Who knows? I will say, though, that I'm excited to see what Jalen Hurts brings to the table as the Philadelphia Eagles quarterback this year. I think he's got the goods. I think the consistent improvement as a thrower of the football is a good sign by all accounts. And it should continue to grow in that manner now that he's in the NFL. I don't get a hint of complacency from the guy. He is never to the point where, all right, I'm good enough. He's been scrubbed at every single level, losing his job to Tua, not winning the Heisman, going in the second round. Still, throughout this entire process of being, granted the starting job when the Eagles traded Carson Wentz to the Colts, it's still like, well, what about Deshaun Watson? What about Aaron Rodgers? Maybe draft Trey Lance, draft Justin Fields, draft somebody and have them compete with Jalen Hurts, even though the front office said, we're going to build around Jalen Hurts and we're going to see how this works in the short term. That's the opportunity that lays ahead of Jalen Hurts, is one more time to shut out the haters, to shut everybody up and go out and play winning football. And he's fully capable of doing that. He's got to have Devontae Smith come back and be healthy and ready to go. And there's no question in my mind that if they use Devontae Smith correctly, it's going to be a boon for everybody on that Eagles team, but especially for Jalen Hurts to have a true number one receiver. He didn't have that last year. Alshon Jeffrey was hurt. Deshaun Jackson was hurt. And Jalen Reagor, for all intents and purposes so far, is a bust. He's not great. So who is he supposed to throw the football to? We got guys named Ty Fulgham and Bourne and guys that aren't NFL wide receivers that he's throwing the football to. Now he's got Devontae Smith. That might be all he's got as far as receivers go. He's got good tight ends, but it's going to have to do for Jalen Hurts this year. And for all intents and purposes, when you've got the wide receiver that won the Heisman Trophy, you've got a shot. 205-342-9904. That's the phone number to call. You can join the show, lend your thoughts on these quarterbacks in the NFL. Any questions about the Alabama Crimson Tide as we get closer to training camp as well? A lot more fun to be had here on Off the Edge. Tide 100.9, your home for Alabama Crimson Tide sports.
Sadness and misery, I don't feel either of these. I'm in a good mood.
Okay.
Hey, man, what's wrong?
Well, it just didn't sound very bluesy.
He's probably happy because he found out Honey Nut Cheerios can help lower cholesterol as part of a heart-healthy diet.
Oh, hey, Buzz.
Okay, well, let's try it again.
Smile on my face.
Nope, that's still happy.
Have a change of heart with Honey Nut Cheerios. Learn more about Honey Nut Cheerios by picking up a box at your local store.
Save now on Pro Essentials with Lowe's Pro Summer Savings. Save on select appliance special values. Plus, save an additional $50 when you buy 2 or more appliances, each price $396 or more. You'll also find savings on tools and more throughout the store. At Lowe's, the new home for pros. Must ask cashier to apply discount in store. Online must use promo code. Can't be combined with any other discounts. See Lowe's.com for exclusions and terms. Valid 7/15 through 8/4. U.S. only.
Gonna miss you around here, Iris.
Olivia's best optometry technician is going back to school.
Did we get that new frame?
Her eye is already twitching about finding a replacement.
Ugh, this can't keep happening. We're gonna have to cancel appointments.
Indeed can help her hire great people fast.
I need Indeed.
Indeed you do. Screen for quality candidates with the skills your role needs with Indeed assessments. Visit Indeed.com/credit and get $75 towards your first sponsored job. Terms and conditions apply.
This is a metaphor for your business's journey. Sometimes it feels like the course keeps changing right before your eyes. Whoa! And in order to maneuver it, you need an expert by your side. That's what Dell Technologies advisors do. They have the tech solutions you need to help you get out in front and stay ahead of the game. Woo! Call an advisor today at 877-ASK-DELL and do more with modern devices in Windows 10 Pro.
You're listening to Off the Edge on Tide 100.9.
Good news for fans of Najee Harris, including myself. Steelers head coach Mike Tomlin says Najee will play in all 4 preseason games. The Steelers have 4 preseason games because of the Hall of Fame game. Of course, the NFL has moved down to 3 preseason games. Says he wants the rookie to understand the process of game preparation, and how much he plays will be determined as they go. So don't expect him to get more than like 2 carries against the Cowboys this Thursday. But nonetheless, first opportunity to see Najee Harris in the black and gold. I'm excited to see that. I'm excited to see if Trayvon Diggs is on the field for the Cowboys as well. I'm sure he won't get many snaps. Amari Cooper still recovering from his injuries, so he won't be on the field. But nonetheless, big opportunity. Also, other Alabama players to watch in that game. I know 2 for the Pittsburgh Steelers, Ross Piersbacher. Not Piersbacher. The center, CJ Hassenhauer. I cannot remember how to say his name. My bad on that. But Isaiah Buggs will also be playing on the defensive line for the Steelers. He will get a lot of reps because he is on the bubble to make that roster. So on the other side, one more player, one more quarterback in the NFL to break down. And my goodness, is Tua Tagovailoa ready to take over the NFL? Sure, there's questions about Mac Jones and when he's going to be a starter. There's questions about Jalen Hurts and how successful he's going to be with this new Eagles regime. I'm beginning to think, beginning to wonder if there are 0 questions around Tua Tagovailoa at this point because of the strides that he has made. 4 straight practices from Tua Tagovailoa without an interception in 11-on-11s for the Miami Dolphins. The fact that the Miami Dolphins Twitter account, every other video you see is Tua Tagovailoa launching a deep ball and completing it. And you watch the NFL Network and Inside Training Camp, and they talk to Tua, and it's like they're marveling at the fact that last year he was the worst quarterback in the league in just attempting to throw the ball downfield. And that appears to be no longer the case. And he appears to be back on his accuracy game in the way that he was here at Alabama. Yesterday in practice, 3 touchdowns in 3-on-3, going 3 for 3 in red zone drills. 2 touchdowns in red zone drills, going 7 for 7. 2 touchdowns in 11-on-11 red zone drills, including 2 touchdowns. 0 interceptions on the day. He's perfect. He's playing. He's practicing perfect. How do you get perfect? Perfect practice. It's insane what he is doing at this point now, and he's got weapons around him. Will Fuller, Albert Wilson, Jalen Waddle, Devontae Parker, Jakeem Grant, Allen Hurns, Robert Foster, another Alabama alum. It's everywhere. Mike Gesicki is still the tight end. He's still damn good. This is a team that you question, the situation as far as the offensive line still. There are still big question marks on that offensive line. There are still big question marks as far as the running back core. But I think Tua is gearing up to light the NFL on fire. We kept anticipating it last year. Okay, when's he finally going to start to play like Tua? When's he finally going to play like the guy that we saw at Alabama? Because everything looked so different. He looked smaller. He looked timid. He's wearing a different number, different colors, and all those sorts of things. Everything just felt wrong. It felt like you weren't watching Tua Tagovailoa play ball. You were just watching a guy that just so happened to have the same name. That no longer appears to be the case. And I think a lot of it comes down to the fact that he's healthy and he's confident because of all the time that he has now had. Sometimes it takes patience. And patience isn't something that the NFL has anymore. And I understand why. I get it. The parity scale in the NFL means that there's no room for patience because you can become the best team in the NFL overnight if you just play your cards right, get the right quarterback, get the right coach, get the right scheme, and put it all together. You can instantly become an incredible football team. And the Dolphins are point positive of that. Selecting Tua with the 5th overall pick, their draft pick, and the team around him plays incredible. And the team is mathematically eliminated from the playoffs. And a lot of it had to do with Tua Tagovailoa's play. Don't get me wrong, but the way that team turned over and became a perennial threat now, moving forward, you would expect under Brian Flores, their head coach, says a lot about what that program, what that franchise is capable of. It turned around quick. And now with Tua Tagovailoa being the final piece to really have to settle, because once you've got your quarterback, you've got it all. Once you've got the quarterback situated, you've got it all situated. Sure, you've still got to put the pieces around him. You've still got to build an offensive line that works. You've got to build a running game that is a threat. But you've still got it figured out once you've got the quarterback. And I think at the end of the day, what really, truly helps the Miami Dolphins is having this receiving core. Last year, it didn't matter where Tua was throwing the ball. It wasn't going to work. Because the guys on the other side were terrible. And that appears to no longer be the case. And the marveling of Jalen Waddle at training camp is second to none as well. And that is just as exciting. I think when we're moving forward with Tua Tagovailoa, I think we're looking at a guy that is in the candidacy for comeback player of the year, honestly, because of how down and out fans and analysts were on him every turn, similar to Jalen, but on a much grander scale. If you can replace him, replace him. Deshaun Watson, Aaron Rodgers, those conversations kept coming up. Do you draft another quarterback since you've got the draft capital to do it? How do you continue to improve this squad? And I've got to say, I'm glad the Miami Dolphins stuck with him. And I'm glad now that he's had a full offseason. So many people seem to forget how ridiculous last year was. There were no mini camps. There were no summer workouts. Training camp was nothing close to what it is today. To get on the same page as anybody would be remarkable. The fact that Tom Brady pulled it off just shows how incredible he is to go in with a new team and new receivers and all that. It helped that all of those players were actually really good. They just needed a quarterback. But for Tua's sake, there were no good players on offense. None. Spare Devontae Parker, who's constantly injured. Now it's to the point where Tua's got pieces around him to be effective. He's got an offense that isn't scared to allow him to push the ball downfield, as well as his confidence is built to the point where he feels confident to go out there and send the ball downfield. It's all coming together for Tua. And that's the exciting aspect when it comes to what he brings to the table for the Miami Dolphins in the next season. And I'm excited to see what transpires for him. I hope that he stays healthy, and I hope that he shows the NFL that he can be one of the most accurate quarterbacks in the league. He can become one of the most dominant quarterbacks in the league. And the fact that he is so excellent at preserving the football, at being smart with it, at avoiding turnovers, avoiding interceptions. He broke a rookie record for consecutive passes without an interception in Dolphins history. Like, he's got it figured out mentally. Once he puts it together physically and he goes out here and he's got the pieces around him to be successful, he's going to do something very, very special. Let's go out to the phone lines. Welcome Corey into the show. Corey, what's going on, man?
Hey, Jacob, how you doing this morning?
I'm doing pretty good. I'm excited, man. Football season's just around the corner.
Oh, we're just about ready. My Huskies will be stepping on the field real soon. Alabama's almost here, and the NFL's almost here, so I'm getting excited. But I wanted to ask you about a couple of things. One, Devontae Smith and his injury. It's not really a concern for me, but what about you? People are saying that the durability part is now, people are saying, I told you so, his durability is now what people have been saying all along, but now he's already been injured in minicamp. And I just wanted to get your take on that, your thoughts on that.
Well, I would say on the counter that, first of all, he's only going to miss 2 or 3 weeks. He just sprained his MCL. Like, that happens. Stuff happens. It's football. You're going to get hurt, right? It doesn't matter how small you are, how big you are. Point positive, the fact that the biggest news in the NFL today is Quentin Nelson, one of the best guards in the NFL, having a foot injury. He's never missed a game. And he's been a flawless football player. Now, the other guy that has the exact same injury as him, Carson Wentz, his quarterback, he's injury prone, right? He's constantly had injuries since getting into the NFL, since tearing his ACL. He's had back problems, other knee problems, ankle issues, you name it. Carson Wentz has had to deal with it, but not Quentin Nelson. But yet he's got the same injury as another guy who's injury prone. I don't think it's always. I don't like the injury prone shtick, argument, whatever you want to call it, until it becomes apparent that the guy, his body has given out and he cannot play football. Look at Andrew Luck. That's a guy who is injury prone. Wasn't always his fault. His offensive line was usually terrible, but it got to the point where he knew he could no longer stay healthy, and that's why he retired. I don't think we see the same things with Tua, with Devontae, anybody. And I said it on repeat going into the NFL draft that with Smitty, that guy got blown up a lot in the SEC. He got hit stick a lot, and he always got up. The one time he got hurt, his hand got bent backwards on a weird tackle. Like, stuff's always going to happen. With Tua, it was always 300-pound guys just landed on his lower leg in an awkward position. So I don't think this proves anything for people that want to go out and say that he's injury prone or that he's going to be injury prone because of his size. We've seen receivers his size be successful in the NFL, and the only thing that's going to hold him back is how he's used as a wide receiver, not whether or not he's injury prone. I'm not going to buy into that. I think that people with those kind of arguments have the same arguments as, oh, Ohio State can't turn out good quarterbacks or Alabama can't turn out good quarterbacks. You don't helmet scout, and you don't immediately imply that guys are injury prone just because of X, Y, and Z until it's a proven situation over time where it's consistently non-contact injuries. And I don't think that's the case with either guy.
What do you think is fair expectations for Najee Harris going into his rookie year?
I'll be honest, I ain't got a fair expectation for him. I think he's got 1,000 on rushing, 1,000 receiving, and over 12 touchdowns. But maybe that's me being extremely biased. I do think he'll rush for over 1,000 yards. I do think he'll score over 10 touchdowns. And I think he's going to have a lot of receiving yards. Maybe a more realistic number is probably 1,100 rushing yards, 800 receiving yards, and 12 touchdowns. But I mean, the Steelers are going to use him. He's already 23 or 24 years old, so he's considered an old back. That's why so many people were against drafting him in the first round. And the Steelers understand that. He's probably not going to be able to get a second contract that's for very long. His second contract might be for 2 years, because he'll be pushing 30 by the time he gets it. So I think they're going to run him into the ground, and it starts now. And I've got no problem with it. I don't think Najee Harris has got a problem with it. And I think anybody that wants him on his fantasy team should snipe him early, because they're going to use him and use him a lot.
Well, it all comes down to how the offensive line forms.
No,
I mean,
100%.
Because I mean, it's just like any team. No matter who you are, your offensive line doesn't perform well, the running back can't do their job. And of course, if Ben does what we hope he can do, I know this is down the road, but you got to think that one day Pittsburgh will select a quarterback to replace Ben, and I know, I know we have Josh Dobbs and we have I can't remember the other guy's name.
You got Mason Rudolph and Dwayne Haskins.
But those are not going to cut it as far as replacing Ben. You're going to have to go into the draft and actually get a quarterback, unless you can go in free agency and get somebody that's proven it. But and I know that's down the road. I'm just saying, 'cause when Ben hangs it up, you're gonna have to get a quarterback, because Big Ben's not going to last in the league forever. Probably the time catches up with everybody, unless you're Tom Brady. But I mean, you can see Ben fading down the stretch. Would you agree?
Not entirely. I do think this is his last year. I don't know about fading. I know that his talent level has gone down, but I don't think it's to such a degree that you hear from national pundits. But I don't really buy into that. I do think that this is his last year, and I think realistically what the Steelers will probably do is either roll with Mason Rudolph or Dwayne Haskins next year. And if it caves, it caves. You're in a position to draft Bryce Young, DJ Uiagalelei, or whoever at the top of the NFL draft in 2023, and you go from there. Otherwise, I mean, you've also got the potential of the Aaron Rodgers situation, but as giddy as I can act about that, I don't know how realistic it is. But I mean, Ben's still got it in him to be successful. This team didn't win 11 games last year for no reason, or 12 games, excuse me, but 11 in a row. They've got it within themselves to be successful. And when they've got Minkah Fitzpatrick and the defense that's on the other side, that was a defense that was good enough in 2019 to carry that team to 8 wins when it had no business being there. So if you just have competent quarterback play for the Pittsburgh Steelers, they're going to be excellent.
The problem is the schedule is probably the most difficult schedule in the NFL, and we're going to have some breaks go our way to probably have a winning record. I mean,
no doubt.
I mean, it's not just our division stuff. I mean, you could make an argument we're probably the third best team in our division, and it's not a slap in the face of Pittsburgh. It's just when you have Lamar Jackson and that team, and you have Baker Mayfield and the offense that they have, it's going to be tough to win some of those games.
No doubt. I continue to say it, though. Anything that's worth doing is going to be very difficult. Corey, I appreciate it, man. We're running out of time.
Good talk to you, Jacob. Roll Tide.
Absolutely. Roll Tide. We'll take a break, come back, close her down. Some interesting news from Ohio State that broke just a bit before the show. Wanted to get into it at the end, and we'll discuss it next on Off the Edge. Tide 100.9, your home for Alabama Crimson Tide sports.
Gonna miss you around here, Iris.
Olivia's best optometry technician is going back to school.
Did we get that new frame?
Her eye is already twitching about finding a replacement.
Ugh, this can't keep happening. We're gonna have to cancel appointments.
Indeed can help her hire great people fast.
I need Indeed.
Indeed you do. Screen for quality candidates with the skills your role needs with Indeed assessments. Visit Indeed.com/credit and get $75 towards your first sponsored job. Terms and conditions apply.
This is a metaphor for your business's journey. Sometimes it feels like the course keeps changing right before your eyes. Whoa! And in order to maneuver it, you need an expert by your side. That's what Dell Technologies advisors do. They have the tech solutions you need to help you get out in front and stay ahead of the game. Woo! Call an advisor today at 877-ASK-DELL and do more with modern devices in Windows 10 Pro.
Your trade-in value is at an all-time high, so bring it to Townsend Nissan and let us give you top dollar for it today. And yes, Townsend Nissan has a lot full of new Nissans and pre-owned vehicles for you to choose from. The bottom line here at Townsend Nissan is we'll save you time and money. We're your local dealer, and that means lower taxes and fees versus those big city dealers. And with rates as low as 0% and Townsend Nissan paying top dollar for that trade-in, don't wait. Shop Townsend Nissan Tuscaloosa today. Townsend Nissan, your family in the car business.
Tide 100.9 Tuscaloosa weather.
Sky partly to mostly sunny today with only a small chance of a shower through the evening hours. The high today 88, the low tonight 69. Tomorrow partially sunny, a chance of widely scattered showers or thunderstorms. The high also at 88. I'm James Spann on the ABC 3340 Weather Center on Tide 100.9. It's 84 degrees in Tuscaloosa.
Follow Off the Edge on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube for live streams and instant analysis. Off the Edge with Jacob Harrison continues.
We're back for the final few minutes here on Tide 100.9, your home for Alabama Crimson Tide Sports. I'm Jacob Harrison. This is Off the Edge. We've got Palmer McCall and Bryant Horn producing the show. So Ohio State is launching a group licensing program for athletes in all sports. NILs will be used with logos, trademarks to make jerseys, then potentially video games, trading cards, bobbleheads, yada, yada, yada. And athletes can also request trademark usage on their own products. I got to say, if you're a fan of the college football video game, that is massive news. That is incredible news. That's exactly the kind of thing that you want to hear, and you want to hear it from all 130 programs. That is the only way to get full rosters. And if you're a fan of that game, then you know that the one thing that was always holding that game back was the fact that the rosters could not be real. Now, them being too close to real is why the game got shut down in the first place. But nonetheless, that game is coming back within the next few years, but do we get full rosters, or do we get partial rosters? Do we see what Ohio State's doing here and allow that to happen? Or other schools say, well, hey, we should do that as well. We can get in on a slice of pie. Because at the same the NCAA would have to pay for each of those licenses. And they've said it in the past. They'd be willing to go to each school and get the licensing. It'd cost a lot, but they would recoup it, and they'd be perfectly fine being able to do that. It would take a long time. It'd be difficult, but this would allow it to be slightly easier because of who the licensing deal is facilitated by, which is the Brander Group, which also does the same thing for North Carolina. So we've already got two schools at the very least who are on top of this. And I got to say, that is awesome. Not to mention jerseys. Are you serious? Come on. Stop making guys pay $20 and wait in 3 months to get a jersey from China just so that it has the guy's name on the back of the jersey. It's nonsense now with NIL the way it is. Everybody will profit from it. Just make it happen. Just make it happen. I understand why trademarks and logos are not necessarily permitted when it comes to NIL deals, because these NIL deals are supposed to be strictly for the brand owned by the player themselves. But in the same vein, if there's money to be had by all parties, then you've got to formulate some sort of contract, some sort of beneficial way to incorporate every avenue of revenue for your own success. We're all here to make money. Go out and make some money. The other side of that is the fact that this is for all athletes in all sports. That can help boon other video games, other avenues for revenue, other ways to find a way to continue to make more money. I'm extremely excited to see how that continues to go. That news coming from Amanda Kristovich, who we've featured on this show before from Front Office Sports. I got to say, though, overall, very excited to see where we go in that direction. I'd love to have, all the college sports video games. I'm a video game junkie. Let's go. I need football. I need basketball. I need baseball. I need it all. Let's go have some fun. Help build some interest for an upcoming generation as we continue to see how things are changing for college athletes and college athletics on the whole. I mentioned in passing the Miles Brennan injury earlier. I've got to say, I don't see this ending well for Miles Brennan. It's a severe injury. He's going to miss several weeks. Not expected to be back for the start of the season. The extent of the injury, we've heard rumors, nothing completely official from LSU yet. And we have, a rough timeline based off of what we know, but that also doesn't mean we have anything totally official to report. But when it comes down to it, Max Johnson's the better quarterback. We've seen small spurts from Miles Brennan where he's thrown for a ton of yards, but the team hasn't been successful. You can't always prevent that. But what I saw from Max Johnson last year, 8 touchdowns and 1 interception, just as many yards in 2 starts and 3 more appearances in mop-up duty. I really like what I saw out of Max Johnson. I always joke about his name, but really and truly, Max Johnson appears to be the guy that has more to offer to this team moving forward. And if LSU wants to be successful, I kind of think that this is the way to go anyway, is to have gone with Max Johnson. I know that Ed Orgeron said that this was a true quarterback battle, but I don't know how much I bought that. I figured it, as many other people figured, it was going to be de facto given to Miles Brennan in the end. So very curious to see how that goes forward with the LSU Tigers. Who's going to be the starting quarterback when the Tigers come into Bryant-Denny Stadium? If it's Max Johnson, I think we're in for a better game. If it's Miles Brennan, I think Alabama's going to cruise right on past. That's just my personal opinion on what I've seen out of those 2 quarterbacks over the past few years. We're out of here. It's been a lot of fun breaking down all the quarterbacks. If you missed any of that, articles, tide109.com, podcast center as well. We'll be back tomorrow at 11 a.m. The Jay Barker Show is up next. For Bryant Horn, Palmer McCall, big thanks to them. Big thanks to Alabama Vintage. I'm Jacob Harrison. This is Off the Edge. We'll talk to you tomorrow. Roll Tide.